Ladies and gentlemen, today I really didn't know how to start this video because the news today is just like, wow, just wow. Anyway, before we get on to the news, can I yet again remind you, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. And if you'd like to support the work that I do here, you can buy me a coffee, although at this point in time, I feel like it should be a whiskey. So start off with some minor news that nobody really cares about, and that's actually around the budget. So has the DA left the GNU yet? No, they haven't. Helen Zille says that she's still considering it, and it looks to me like she's trying to encourage Cyril to fire her and her ministers. She says they're still in the government for now. They're going to fight the VAT hike in the courts, but they're not yet leaving. Now, for those of you who don't recall, the reason the DA said they were going to get involved in the GNU, Government National Unity, in the first place was they wanted to grow the economy, grow jobs, and if they did that, they would increase the tax base, which effectively could be used to lower rates and make South Africa more attractive. Ngorongwana says, well, that's still actually his intention. And he says that, unfortunately, that from time to time, there are some pressures which mean that tax increases have to occur. Now, a little known topic we haven't really covered much in the news is that actually Ngorongwana at the end of last year found some extra money. He had some tax windfalls. They got paid a little bit extra than they expected. And as a result, the money that they found would have meant that it doesn't actually necessitate the VAT increase in the first place. So when the ANC suddenly dropped the requirement for this VAT increase, well, that was actually the reason why. However, the news now out is that basically we're getting a 1% VAT increase anyway. Now, I'm going to reiterate that this is not confirmed. It's speculation. It's what everybody's saying. And the speculation must be something, because actually SA is now saying that actually if they got this whole thing wrong around the VAT increase, then they will own that mistake. Yes, but so will everybody else in the Republic, guys. Like, this is what you guys don't get. Freaking clownish party, these lot. They vote for this stuff as if they can trust these guys. Where have you been living? Under what rock? Anyway, let's actually go on to the main news story, and that obviously is around the US and the whole sanctions issue. So for those of you who don't know, I don't know why you wouldn't know, the US have basically offered a potential refugee program that was suggested that the refugee program was currently being requested by up to 67,000 individuals, which when you include members of their family was something like 250,000 Afrikaners that wanted asylum or refugee status in the United States. Well, the news has now been downgraded according to the South African Chamber of Commerce, and it would appear that they say they've only had actual interest from about 8,000 South Africans, which is a significantly lower figure, basically meaning that there isn't a desire for large-scale South Africans wanting to immigrate to the US. Now, for those of you who have speculated, am I going? Like, get lost. Like, of course I'm not going. I'm staying in the country. It's also important to recognize that South Africa has been going to massive lengths to try to clarify its whole BEE status and the land expropriation without compensation issue. Just basically say, we're not doing what you said, relax. And this is the usual spin doctrine that the ANC usually likes to engage in to say to everybody else, it's not that we're doing what we're doing and we're doing what we're telling you we're doing. It's just you're too stupid to understand our progressive reasons and rationalities. And once you understand, you won't think we're as bad as you think we are anymore. And as I've said in numerous videos, we're not stupid. We know exactly what you're doing. Now, if you watched my video yesterday, and unfortunately I went through all the effort of making a video around the tariffs, and very few people actually watched it. Why? I don't know. But anyway, if you watched that video yesterday, Trump slapped a whole bunch of tariffs on South Africa. And now the speculation is that it's basically preemptively killed AGOA. Now you got to understand the rationality as to why. And that's because AGOA allows basically tariff-free trade with the United States. And South Africa's just had some of its industry slapped with a 30% tariff. As I said in the video yesterday, we're not the only country to be slapped with that tariff. Now, the minimum tariff to be applied to goods sold to the United States that are basically not covered underneath the 30% tariff is now 10%, which means that the minimum tariff being adopted against South Africa and the export of its goods is a minimum of 10%. Now, the whole point of AGOA is no tariffs. So you basically get to push them out with nothing. Well, that's no longer the case. So effectively, AGOA is dead. Technically, it's obviously still on the table, but there is no exemption for goods that are covered underneath AGOA. which means that all goods are subject to a minimum of a 10% tariff. So yes, AGOA is pretty much done. So what does that actually mean when it comes time for AGOA's renewal? And the answer is, well, I very much doubt it's going to be renewed based on the current situation. Now, it's important to recognize exactly what I told you yesterday. The whole purpose of the whole tariffs, the reciprocal tariffs, is to make countries renegotiate their position and basically drop their tariffs to the US. And South Africa currently adopts like 60% tariffs against US goods at points. So obviously a way to get back to your reciprocal nature of, zero tariffs is drop your tariffs. It's that simple. So as I said to you yesterday, what was the actual outcome of this? Well, the tariffs and the whole GNU shakeup, the instability in the GNU, which I don't really think has really kind of come to an end yet, has basically shaken the rand, and South African shares, including the JSE, have really suffered. I did say in my video yesterday that the rand was close to 19 rand per dollar, and there were some people in the comment section going, no, it isn't. Well, yeah, it is. It is now. And you obviously had to see the projections for the day. The JSE suffered immensely. But on to the main news story, and the news story that, to be honest, if actually proves to be true, will mean that everything I have just discussed was the Maryland walk in the park. Because according to Lewis, a representative of the UK-based judicial rights group, he's basically written to the US ambassador for South Africa. You know, the new one? Yep, Leo Brents, that one. And he's basically said he has evidence that not only did South Africa get paid its hush money by Iran to take Israel to the ICJ, he has evidence to say that South Africa had, and I quote, advanced notice of the October 7th atrocity, the plans that were actually going to take place, and that the response to it would be an attack, and that they would then approach the ICC and the ICJ for protection from Israel's response. And so this individual and this group of advocates in the UK are approaching the United States for sanctions to be applied directly against South Africa in retaliation, because according to him, he likened it to assisting your neighbor to burn down your house and then rushing to court to claim insurance protection from the insurer. Basically says that it was all predetermined. So they say South Africa was directly complicit and knew specifically that DIRCO, the Department of International Relations and Corporations, knew of Hamas's strategy, and that it was actually a political strategy facilitated to attack Israel. And I've got to say, if this proves out to be correct, the sanctions are going to be like next level. This is going to be off the charts. And we've all heard the allegations that South Africa got paid by Iran to take Israel to the ICJ. But this is an allegation entirely of its own. I mean, if they knew about the actual strategy to attack Israel for October 7th, this is horrendous. Like, absolutely horrendous. This is next level horrendous. This is them being complicit in murder in a pre-planned attack to kill civilians. And that can't go unpunished. And if proven true, it won't go unpunished. This is horrendous. Apparently, these individuals have reached out to Cyril Ramaphosa and basically asked, are they aware of the DIRCO-Hamas collaboration and the allegations that there was collaboration between the two? And in response to this, they've basically just dismissed the allegations, said it was unverified and baseless. This is really not a good news story, and I must admit, it's a news story that, to be frank, shocks me. I mean, I knew of the allegation that Iran had paid us some money, and everybody knew that allegation. But the allegation that we actually had collaborated for the attack, it's next level. Anyway, that's just my views. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Until Monday, bye.